Ted, Kansas City, Missouri, on the Internet. How are you, sir?
How you doing, Mark? I told you your call screener I could help you with the nuclear plant if you want information on that. And just as importantly, what you're talking about now, my wife and I know why Boehner's not moving to repeal health care.
Yeah.
He wants it. See, these guys are politicians. They crave the power. They love the game. Think of how many lobbyists and how much time and whining and dining they're going to get with 100,000 pages of healthcare regulation.
I'm starting to wonder myself. I'll be honest with you.
That's what it's about.
All right, now tell me, what is your expertise on nuclear power plants?
Well, I was in the Navy for 5.5 years operating nuclear power plants, and then I cleaned up nuclear waste at the Oak Ridge National Labs and at 3 Mile Island, and then I worked at a civilian plant in Texas for 6 years.
So what's going on?
Well, it looks like, just from what I'm reading on the Internet, they've had real bad problems out there. These plants are supposed to be designed for what they call a design basis accident.
Well, one of them apparently is pretty old vintage.
Yeah, and it looks like they've had some mechanical injury to the plant. So the big picture is, even if everything fails, even if every pump, every backup system, every backup power supply fails, the plants in places like Japan and Europe and the United States are built with containment buildings. That's something that Chernobyl did not have. So even if they melt down the core there, which they could apparently, it's going to be the same deal as it was at 3 Mile Island. They'll destroy the plant, but they will not release radioactive material to the environment. Some radiation may escape, but it's just like radiation from the sun. It dissipates over a certain distance.
So a lot of this news reporting really is getting a little hype, do you think?
Well, I think first of all, they don't know. I mean, certainly I don't. I'm just reading what I read on the Internet. And second of all, the plant has a design. It has a procedure it has to follow. So if there's a chance of a certain level of accident, they have to make a certain evacuation. And so the news looks at that and says, oh, well, this level of evacuation means that they can have this level of catastrophe. But these plants are designed that unless the physical integrity of the containment building has been breached, even if they melt the core down, those buildings are contained. They're designed to contain all the pressure, all of the water vapor and steam pressure that will occur from cooling that size of a core.
We just learned more from you in 2 minutes than all day listening and watching the news. You haven't heard any of this, have you, yourself, being somewhat of an expert on this? I haven't.
No, and what was really funny was, Hillary said that we were going to deliver coolant to help them out. It's a water-cooled plant.
Yeah, so what's coolant going to do?
One of the stories on Drudge said that nuclear experts in the United States were baffled by that comment.
So why would she make a comment like that, honestly?
Well, obviously somebody that was telling her what to say told her to say the wrong thing.
All right, so if these containment facilities are intact, it should go okay.
Yeah, they could still destroy the plant. It'll be just like 3 Mile Island Unit 2. They can destroy the plant, but the radioactive material will be contained inside the building.
Well, so we have a lot of ignorance out here now in terms of news reporting and so forth, and so do you think this may be just ignorance or somewhat agenda-driven?
Well, both. I mean, if you look at the number of nuclear power plants in Europe, and, everybody knows that pays attention, at one point in time, France got over 80% of their power from nuclear power. If they can do it, certainly we could.
Yeah, but don't you think this will be used to try and even slow down further our ability to get investors and regulations in place so that people can build nuclear power plants?
Oh, without a doubt. The same thing happened when the 3 Mile Island accident happened and then the Browns Ferry accident. We learned some important lessons from that, but you never know. We may look at this accident and find out that some of our design basis engineering criteria aren't good enough.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ted, I can't thank you enough. I'm glad you got through.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right, take care, man. That's fascinating. But there will be a political agenda here, I guarantee it. The enviros are, they're like ambulance chasers. They can't wait to tell us what can't work. Now, if it were up to the flat earth, no-growth, Marxist environmental movement, we would all freeze to death in the winter or sweat to death in the summer. We'd all go hungry, and we'd have no fuel for anything. Let's see. Dave in Berkeley, California, the great KSFO, an independent. How are you, Dave?
Good, Mark. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah.
I heard you talking about oil and everything. And I'm sure a lot of Democrats are disenchanted with Barack Obama ever since he let BP use dispersants and sink all that oil to the bottom of the Gulf. I think he's in bed with big oil. And I think, actually, there should be no Democrat and no Republican Party because each one blames the other for the world's problems when they're really the same party.
What kind of party should there be?
There shouldn't be any party. It should be, this is candidate X and this is candidate Y.
Well, then but candidate X and candidate Y, I mean, I need to have some general label to understand who they are so I can look further. Candidate X is Ernie Grabotsky. He decides to run for office. I'm a working person. I don't have time to figure out every issue where he stands on. I mean, how would they wind up on the ballot? You just have 5,000 people running?
Well,
pick one out of the 5,000? I mean, how would it work exactly?
The point I'm making, Mark, is...
No, I understand the point you're making. You are making a point that is unrealistic. There could be 5 parties, but you didn't say that. You said there should be no party. And so my question is, when you come down to voting, and you go to the voting booth, and there's a list of people, is the list endless? How do you decide who gets to run?
There should not be this polarized, bipolar situation.
Excuse me, sir. Bipolar and polarized are 2 different things. Let me explain something to you. I want polarized. I do not accept big government. I accept constitutional government. So it is a polarized situation where I stand for one thing as a conservative and the leftists stand for another. Where we don't have polarized, as you put it, politics, we have tyranny. We have totalitarian states where everything goes one way and it's always big and it's always miserable. You get my drift?
Well, the point I'm making, Mark, is one side always blames the other, when in reality it is Joe Public and Jane Public that is
Joe Public blame. What?
Pardon me?
Joe Public what?
The public is to blame, not the politicians. All
right, thank you for your call. I'm getting a headache already. The public's to blame, so we should do what? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what he wants to do. I have an idea. It's called the United States Constitution. Let's stick with it. You know, they have these idiot attempts, and you can go to places like Italy and so forth, where they have 412 parties. They don't have stable government. It's a socialist society. That doesn't work. What works is following the Constitution. That works. Our problem is that we need to keep fighting with this Republican leader. The Democrat Party's gone. The Democrat Party fundamentally does not believe in the Constitution. And I want to be quoted all over the place by saying that, because I will be anyway. The Democrat Party cannot exist if the Constitution is reestablished and instituted, which is why it spends its every waking day, its members do, its leadership does, trying to evade it. Oh, where's health care in the Constitution? Well, I don't know. What's the big deal? Well, what about the wording of the Constitution? Well, it's not living and breathing. It's not modernized. All that means is, I don't believe in the Constitution. That's it. And they don't. Where do they get all these powers they're trying to exercise over us? Not from the Constitution. Not from the founding. Not from our history. They get it out of their ass. That's where they get it from. And then they impose it on us. So no, they don't believe in the Constitution. And they rarely cite it. And when they do, they rarely cite it legitimately. What that guy was coming down with, which is why I was trying to actually pull the truth out of him, was this Marxist notion of a governmentless society. Well, there's never been any, and it can't work. And a hell of a lot of people have died in the name of that phony cause. That's where he was coming from. The problem isn't a two-party system. The problem is the people who run the damn parties. The problem isn't a constitutional government. The problem is the people who run the damn government and what they're doing to it. We don't need to change our institutions. We need to strengthen them. We need to put people in place who are going to respect them and us. Don't give me this Marxist claptrap, which is where he was headed. Even Marx couldn't explain what he was talking about. Even Engels, his ghostwriter half the time, couldn't explain what he was talking about. Where is this society without government? What is that? That's idiotic. Oh, maybe that's on, maybe that's in Berkeley. Maybe Haight-Ashbury. I remember those days in the 60s. How cool. Anarchy. Wasn't that cool? Dummy. All right, Nick, New York, the great WABC. Go.
Hey, Mark.
Nick, yes, how are you?
I'm good. I just wanted to say first that I'm a young Republican from Fairfield University in Connecticut, and I actually just got my own conservative radio show, so I look forward to continuing to learn from the best.
Well, you're a great guy. I appreciate that. Just keep listening, and you will.
I will, definitely. My question is in relation to Obama and him running in 2012. My question is, what do you think it would take for Christie to get into this race and beat Obama?
Well, let me ask you a question. Are you familiar with Christie?
I am very. Actually met him at a fundraiser in Connecticut. We were working for Tom
Well, good. You're the man I want to talk to.
Please.
What's his position on amnesty?
I believe I read a quote that he said that he would enforce the laws on the books.
I read a quote that he says he's for comprehensive immigration reform.
Well, I don't think he has that much experience with it being in New Jersey. It's not like he's
all right, let me keep moving on.
Okay.
Why did he campaign for Mike Castle?
Well, because I think that if we put O'Donnell in that position, we would have lost anyway, and I think...
Oh, okay. So why would you go out of your way to campaign for one of the most left-wing Republicans in Congress? Why would you do that?
The Senate was an important goal, and I think if we had the majority party...
Are you a conservative or a Republican?
I'm a conservative at heart. I'm not...
Sounds like you're a Republican. Let's keep moving along.
Okay.
Why does he continue to keep funding, despite the dire financial situation in New Jersey, these green initiatives?
I'm not familiar with his funding of green.
Well, you need to become familiar with it if you're going to support somebody for president.
Well, what about the fiscal responsibility?
I'll get to that. I give him tons of credit for that. But let me tell you something. When your state's $100 billion in the red, just in unfunded liabilities, just as they're duking it out in Ohio and Wisconsin and other states, you've got to fight that. You've got to fight that back, and he's done a terrific job on that. But when you're running, when you want my vote for president, I need more. I need to make sure you support all the Bill of Rights, including the Second Amendment. I need to make sure you support border security, and not as part of comprehensive immigration reform, but as part of border security, national security, law enforcement security. I want to make sure a president of the United States is not appointing radicals to the bench, as he appointed one who represented detainees in Guantanamo Bay. I don't get that, do you?
Well, who do you think would be a good candidate?
Boy, it's funny how you won't answer my questions.
Well, I believe that his values as a conservative that he does have outweigh the maybe center.
I actually think he's right when he says he's not ready to be president. I agree with him on that.
Well, I think he'd be the best candidate. I'm not saying the field is tremendous.
Why? Why would he be the best candidate? I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of good potential candidates out there and a lot of poor ones.
I think because you need a fresh face on this one. I think when
there's a lot of fresh faces out there. I don't necessarily support an old face.
That could compete, though. I think Christie has the appeal, and he has
I just gave you a number of issues that you're concerned about or can't answer, and let me just give you some friendly advice that a lot of people may disagree with. Forget about the cult of personality. Focus on the substance. We'll be right back.